If people actually knew this shame that I have, no one would ever love me, no one would ever accept me, no one would ever want to hang out with me, be my friend, they would outcast me. That was the internal conversation. If they knew this shame and insecurity of mine.
I love that sort of the people who care don't matter and the people who matter don't care.
And I feel like, man, I'm just getting better every time.
Yeah.
Because I'm coachable. I'm taking feedback. I've invested in it. I keep showing up. And I'm just enjoying the little wins.
People always want to know, how do you come back from adversity? When you reach the dream and then the dream bursts, how do you come back? How do you get over that? And how do you come back and be successful again?
Yeah, well, I can share how I did it. For me, it was about 1.5 years of breakdown and confusion and maybe a little depression, sleeping on my sister's couch, unsure and unclear what I wanted to do. So what I did is what I knew best, which is sports. What do I need to be a great athlete? I need to have a great coach. So at that time, I started looking for mentors and coaches to guide me in life, in business, and just being a better man, all these things. I was 23, 24 at the time. And so first step for me was finding mentors with a model that I could mimic, finding a mentor that had some type of life or business or career that I could model and mimic myself. And I found 3 of those men early on to kind of coach me and guide me and give me feedback. That was step 1. The second thing was just figuring out, okay, I need to shed this identity that I was living in. I was holding on to being this athlete and living this dream. The dream has died. I can't keep holding on to something that's dead. I need to grieve it. I need to experience the loss, the death, and let it go and move on into something else and recreate a new vision for my life. That was really hard for me, creating a new vision.
Yeah.
Just because it was something that was the only thing I focused on. The only thing I thought about was playing sports.
And to have that end at 23, at least at 35, you go ahead at 12 years. And how many years did you have of success?
I only had a year. Yeah, I mean, a year playing professionally. I mean, I played 4 years in college, and then I played professionally for 1 year, but I got injured as a rookie.
Yeah.
So it was, when the dream gets cut short, it's challenging. It's sad. There's a loss. There's an identity loss. There's a dream loss, all these things. For me, I took it really challenging and really hard. But recreating a new vision, having some guides and mentors to support, to have a model to see, okay, that's something that I could be inspired by, what they've created 20 years away from now. It's something that I could be interested in. They have this skill, they've built that business, they have this family life. Okay, there's something I can hold on to and think about. And creating a vision, what do I want for this next year? So I started just getting clear on, okay, some goals, some simple goals. I want to get off my sister's couch.
Yeah.
What do I need to do? I need to make $3,000 a month. How do I do that? And breaking that part down. That was the first couple steps for me. And then I really started to think of early on in my teens, I started creating a fear list.
A fear list?
A fear list.
Okay.
And in order for me to become more fearless, I need to write down my biggest fears, my biggest insecurities, my biggest shames, and then create an experience or some type of challenge to go all in on my biggest fears until the fear disappears. Because I can't be fully in my power and confident if I have all this shame and insecurity. And so every year I think about it, what is my biggest fear, my biggest shame, my biggest insecurity, my biggest embarrassment that I've yet to overcome? I make a list, and then I go tackle those things. And those give me more confidence, more skills, more tools to be a better human.
So what is your biggest fear right now, today?
Right now, well, the thing that was my biggest insecurity, I should say, I feel like I've conquered a lot of fears in the last 8 to 10 years specifically, but the biggest insecurity this year was more of like something I've been letting myself, I haven't been proud of myself for the last 20 years. 20 years ago, I started taking Spanish class in high school and really enjoyed it, but I was horrible at it. And I didn't pick it up quickly, something I struggled with. And as an athlete, I'm used to picking things up quickly, naturally, getting it, being good at things quickly. But that's never happened with Spanish. But every year for the last 20 years, I've said to myself, this is the year I'm going to learn it. And I find some app or book or whatever, it gets too challenging, and then I stop and I give up. For 20 years, I've given up. But there's still something inside me that wants to learn Spanish. But I'm insecure and afraid because I know that I'm not good at it. I know that I'm going to look silly. I'm going to sound stupid. I'm going to stutter over my words when I try it and practice it. And so I said, okay, for 20 years, I've regretted this. At the end of every year, I regret that I didn't do Spanish. And then I say I'm going to do it the next year and I don't do it. So I keep, like, I'm out of integrity with myself. I either need to kill this dream and let it go and not think about it, or I need to go all in on it until I'm not afraid of it anymore. So I finally said, I'm finding someone, I'm paying them in advance, someone who can teach me and mentor me, who can teach me Spanish. And about 6 months ago, I started it, and it's been miserable. It's been miserable. It's been extremely challenging and hard. But I tell you what, something happened a couple of weeks ago, because I keep showing up every morning, 3 times a week for an hour, and I feel like I'm not going anywhere. A couple of weeks ago, I started to get it a little bit, and I was like, oh, I'm actually able to put some things together. And I'm like, okay, if this takes 5 years, it's going to take 5 years. It may not happen overnight. It's not going to. But I'm proud of the effort and the work I'm putting in. And I don't care if I look silly in front of my teacher and these things. Like, I'm learning, I'm growing, and I'm proud of the effort. So for me, that's been a fear. It's like a different level of fear now.
Yeah, and it's so weird that you'd think of looking silly, because most people find when you can't say their language, they find it enchanting. It's like when people try to, when French people speak English and when English people speak French and we get it wrong. Most people find that really enchanting. They love the fact that you made an effort, even if the effort doesn't quite work. Right. So that's interesting that you would fear looking silly.
I think it was always a fear growing up of, like, being embarrassed in front of my classmates, because I would speak. Our teachers would ask us to read aloud, and I couldn't read. I couldn't read in middle school, high school. I struggled a lot with reading and writing. So I think I was just insecure when it came to, like, books and learning and things like that, challenging subjects. So it kind of reminds me of being back in high school when I got made fun of a lot.
Yeah.
And so it's okay. I haven't dealt with this yet. I haven't overcome this yet. Let me go all in on it.
And no one identified that. I remember years ago, I was working with a very famous footballer, and he said to me, you know, you've changed my life, and it's thanks to you. I said, oh, could you write that out? Write me a little testimonial. And he said, you write it. I said, no, you write it. He said, no, you write it and I'll sign it. I said, I'd rather you wrote it. And he said, I can't write.
Wow.
I was really shocked. He said, well, you know, I was going to be a famous footballer. I left school at 14. My family knew at 7 I'd be an athlete, so I never bothered at school. And he said, and I can't write. And I was so shocked that A, he couldn't write, but B, that the school didn't. I mean, that's not his fault, but how could a school not pick that up in a child and would just let them coast through and not realize he couldn't write? And of course, he couldn't really read. But did your school too? They just didn't notice. They weren't tuned into that. Or were you good at hiding it?
I was very good at lying and cheating and copying people's homework. I was very good at this, which I'm not proud of, but I had to survive.
Yeah, but that's smart.
When I went into 8th grade, they started testing us, and I had a 2nd grade reading level when I went to 8th grade. So I just remember being in 8th grade saying, oh, I'm stupid. I'm dumb. I can't read. I would say these things to myself.
Yeah.
And I'm never going to be good enough in school, like all these things. So obviously, you know, using that language and thinking and believing it didn't support me. But luckily, the school I went to put me into tutoring right away. Like, they were either like, we're going to have to hold you back a few grades, or you need to go in these classes, like these extra tutoring classes. So during lunch breaks, I was with a tutor when everyone was at, like, lunch and recess. I had to go in early after school. I remember my senior year in high school, my English teacher, I was failing senior year English. And she was like, Louis, you can't go play football in college if you don't pass senior year English. Like, they won't let you get you can't apply to school if you don't pass this. And she would work with me every day after class until I got a passing grade. I wasn't great, but I got a passing grade. And so I had that support throughout all of high school and college just to finish and graduate.
And it's so amazing how your childhood stays with you. You can be the most successful, famous, drop-dead gorgeous person in the world, but that residue of what you lived as a child is often in the room with you. People are always shocked about that, how many people who are famous are insecure, nervous, self-conscious, waiting to find out that, oh, you're not that successful person at all.
Exactly. Yeah, for me, over the last, I guess, 10, 12 years, I've been able to overcome a lot of fears in business or marketing and around money and relationships. So every year there's new fears or insecurities that may come up that I get to conquer. And I just try to figure out what is the thing that's holding me back the most this year.
Yeah.
And every time I'm at a new level of life, there's going to be a different type of fear or insecurity that comes up. So I just keep trying to tackle those things so that they don't have power over me.
But if you looked at all the fears, would you say they all have the same theme, that they're all a fear of being rejected or looking stupid or looking silly?
It's the fear of like being judged or people making fun of me and stuff like that from childhood stuff, which I'm fully aware of. And I am able to laugh at myself and have people laugh at me, and I'm much better at it now. But I think it's certain things related to like school. Yeah. Where it's like, okay, learning from a textbook, learning a language was a school subject. And so it's figuring out how do I make it more fun and enjoyable where it's not, I can mess up all day long and it's not a big deal. So it's reframing it and not beating myself up for not figuring it out right away. It's not going to be something I'm going to learn in 2 weeks. It's a language. It's going to take time. And I'm not immersing myself 6 months in another country. I'm doing 3 lessons a week. So it's understanding that this is the small wins on a daily basis. It's going to take years. It's going to take a lifetime to continue to maintain. But for me, I'm really proud of going all in on that fear and being consistent and having a coach and a mentor teach me and paying in advance so that I know I have to show up and have accountability. And doing it and just being like, oh, look how far I've come in 6 months. Like, imagine what I'll do in another 6 months. So those little wins say, you know what? I'm proud of myself. I can do this. Yeah. And I think every year, for me, it's important to create a fear list and then go all in on the first couple so that you can become more fearless.
And you're doing salsa as well, aren't you? Learning
I've been doing salsa for a long time. That was a huge fear.
Tell me about that.
That was probably one of the biggest insecurities because I started that in 2005, 16 years ago, I guess. And I remember I went to this jazz club that my brother was playing at. He was a jazz violinist. And they had salsa dancing at this jazz club one night. So I went back to check it out because I wanted to see what is this salsa dancing thing. And I've only seen it on TV and movies. And I went there and I was blown away by, it was pretty much all Latin people who were salsa dancing. And I was this tall, white American guy standing over the crowd. And I was so intimidated. I was in awe and intimidated at the same time by how smooth these guys were, how beautiful these women looked, and the artistry of salsa dancing. And I went back once a week for 3 months and I did not dance at all because I was so afraid. And I started.
But what were you afraid of?
I was afraid of looking bad. I was afraid of
that same thing again.
I was afraid of looking bad. I was afraid of like messing up in front of people. I was afraid that I'd be laughed at by everyone else because I don't know this culture. I'm trying to like learn this stuff where everyone's a pro, it looked like. And I also didn't want to make the girls look bad. I was like, you dance with me, you're going to look horrible because I don't know what I'm doing. So I didn't want to make them look bad. I didn't want to look bad. And I was afraid of getting laughed at and judged. That's been always my biggest fear, the judgment of other people. And it's less and less now. And I remember one girl eventually was like, that I got to know a little bit. She was finally dragged me out on the dance floor after 3 months of going there every week, pulls me out. I'm in the middle. It's like in the middle of a scene of a movie or something. I'm in the middle. It takes me in the middle of the dance floor. All these people dancing around me. The music is going. And she's like, just follow my basic step. And we did the basic step for the next 20 minutes. I just stared down at my feet for 20 minutes and it was like sweating. I was like, man, I'm so horrible. I'm bad. I'm like stepping on her feet. She's like smiling and having fun. And I'm just so tight, like afraid. And then she stops me and she goes, Lewis, look up. And I look up, she goes, look around you. And I look around me and the most amazing thing, no one was looking at me.
No one cared. At you.
Everyone was dancing and having fun. And if anything, they might have been like, oh, okay, like, oh, he's a beginner. He doesn't look that good, but let me go back to dancing and having fun. They weren't talking about me. No one cared. If anything, they're probably like, good for him.
Yeah, cool. I mean, I used to teach yoga and I would say to people, don't look in the mirror. Most yogis, you shouldn't have a mirror in yoga. And no one's looking. They're all too busy trying to do their own treat, trying to stand up, trying to put their leg behind their ear. I mean, they're not looking at you. Yeah. That's not what it's about. But then people say, I can't go to the gym because I'm not fit enough to work out. I can't go to a class because I'm able to get it right. I couldn't go to Zumba. But no one's looking at
No
you.
one
They're far
cares.
too busy. They don't care. It's like, I love that story. The people who care don't matter, and the people who matter don't care.
That's it.
Because people just salute you for trying, for turning up, for having a go, and dancing is about fun. But it's interesting, twice in the first 10 minutes you've mentioned that same fear, the fear
Yeah.
of getting it wrong, of looking silly, of being laughed at. But I also know you've taken up boxing, so
I did. That
tell
was
me
another
about
thing that I
that.
took up this year as well, because I was like, I need a new challenge. I've done lifting, I've done all these different things, but I was like, I feel like I need a new challenge where I have a beginner's mind. Mm-hmm. Because when I started salsa dancing, when I started Spanish about 6 months ago, like anytime I start something new that I'm afraid of or that I'm not good at, I just know that I gained so much confidence in that journey of applying that skill, of learning that skill. So I've done, almost 10 sessions, and it's amazing, because what I did is I said, I need the best trainer I can find. So I found an amazing British guy who lives here, who's an Olympian for London or for the UK, and a professional fighter. He's an amazing trainer. And I said, I need to find the best mentor, because it'll accelerate my learning curve and I'll gain more confidence quickly. And the first few sessions, I was horrible. I mean, I looked so bad, terrible, tight, like all these things. My footwork was off. It felt like I was salsa dancing again for the first time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But like I went again today, and I feel like, man, I'm just getting better every time.
Yeah.
Because I'm coachable. I'm taking feedback. I've invested in it. I keep showing up, and I'm just enjoying the little wins.
Yeah, and again, no one's looking at you to see what you're doing wrong. They're looking to see what you're doing right.
Absolutely, yeah.
So here's a question for you, because you have this fear of looking silly, but you've written 2 books.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me how you did that, because most people who write, when they're writing, think, oh gosh, I hope it doesn't get rejected. What if nobody likes it? And people think writers just sit down and write, and a lot of writers really struggle with how the audience is going to perceive what they're writing, even as they're writing it. And a lot of writers, amazingly, dump 80% of what they've written, keep going back and doing it again.
Really?
Yeah.
How did I do it?
So tell me how you wrote your first book.
I think I've always been more inspired and led by creating and my goals than my fears. Mm-hmm. So even if I'm afraid, I feel like eventually I'll do what it takes to overcome it by putting something out there. And I think the book would have been a dream of mine for many, many years, probably 6 or 7 or maybe 8 years, where I was like, one day I want to write a New York Times bestseller. And I want to prove to myself that a dumb kid who couldn't read and write that well can go do something like this. And that drove me. I was like, I want to prove this to myself, but I want to create something that serves other people. And I think I was a little, even then, that was back probably like, what was that, 6 years ago now, the first book. I was definitely reactive to negative reviews.
Yeah,
that
I was
first
going
book.
to ask you that. So
the first book, I was like, gosh, this person has no clue how much effort I went into this, what I created here, who are they? So I definitely had a defensive mind. And I learned quickly after that book to stop trying to defend myself with my work.
yeah.
I had another coach who saw me, this was probably 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago. Around that time, I was very defensive on Twitter or Instagram comments or whatever. Anytime someone critiqued me, it was like I had to convince them that they were wrong. And he saw this one day and he called me and he was like, Lewis, why are you engaging in these negative comments? Why are you trying to defend yourself? You're wasting your time and energy trying to defend yourself. Just thank them for the feedback and move on. Or
Yeah.
don't reply.
Yeah.
Either one. But defending a negative comment is not going to do you any good. It's only going to hurt you more.
Yeah.
Focus on the people that are inspired. Take the feedback and see if there's anything true there and apply it if it makes sense. But otherwise, don't engage. So I've learned over many years of like pain and, holding on to this like defensiveness that it doesn't work for me anymore. So it took a while.
Yeah, when my first book came out, it got so many amazing reviews. People wrote to me and said, you're paying for these reviews. It's not possible. How could you have this is all paid for. You bought all these reviews. So when I got a bad one, I was like, oh, I'm so glad I've got a horrible one going, I hate that book and I hate the writer, because now it's more balanced. So I was actually really, I thought, I need to pay one to give me a bad review so that everyone would think I paid someone to give me all these good reviews.
Right.
But then you wrote a second book.
Yeah.
Knowing, of course, people have this weird belief that if you become rich or famous or successful, your life's a dream. And that there is no more rejection, there is no more difficulty, there is no more issues.
Struggle, yeah.
And of course it's not true. And to write a book or put yourself anywhere in the public eye, like I work with a lot of actors, and I say, look, you have to be able to deal with rejection. Sometimes you get rejected. I mean, when my little girl was a baby, she was a model. She was so amazing. She had masses of hair. And they said, oh, no, she's too pretty. When you model baby clothes, the baby can't be cuter than the clothes.
Oh my gosh.
So she got rejected for being too pretty. Yeah, she did a lot of stuff, but she couldn't model baby clothes. They said, she's so gorgeous. They'll just look at her and not the clothes. And then a few of my classes that I went for a role, and they went, oh, no. When I called them back, they said, no, you were too beautiful. You would outshine the leading lady.
Wow.
One of my clients got rejected from being a dancer with Kylie Minogue, and they said, you're too tall. Kylie's dancers can't be too tall. Madonna always dances with guy backing dancers because she's not tall. But often we think, you don't like me. And someone says, well, I don't like you because you're too tall, too beautiful, too smart. But people don't see that. So obviously, when you read all the reviews and try to reason with somebody who's unreasonable and just doesn't like you for no other reason than they don't like you, what happened with the second book? Were you over that by then, or did you still go back and look at the reviews?
No, I was more over that by then. I think, it's interesting. I remember, I think I had another issue. For like a day, I was upset because the book didn't hit the New York Times list. And I was thinking, these people have no clue how much harder I worked on the second book and how much more meaningful it was and all these things. So I think for a day, I was like, oh, man, I was kind of just bummed out that I didn't get the result. The expectation didn't happen of what I was thinking. And then it took about a day or two until I was like, you know what? I need to get back to focusing on the mission, not about like me accomplishing the goal, but focusing on service. And that mentality shifted me back to not an expectation hangover, but okay, we're just going to keep helping people and see what happens from it.
And you were really real about your childhood in that book.
Absolutely,
I mean, you took the lid off everything, didn't you?
Yeah.
What was that like, really exposing even the abuse and the things that happened to you?
This was the scariest thing I can think that I've ever done, was talk about being sexually abused. And I talked about it originally 8 years ago in a small group, an emotional intelligence workshop that I was in after like the second week. And it felt like death. It felt like I was about to die.
Wow.
Sharing, this is all I could imagine. It felt like if people actually knew this shame that I have, no one would ever love me, no one would ever accept me, no one would ever want to hang out with me, be my friend. They would outcast me. That was the internal conversation, if they knew this shame and insecurity of mine. And so I think that's why I held on to it for 25 years until I found this workshop that I went to that created many, many moments for me to finally get to open up and kind of peel back the layer of my emotions and my shame. And I did it once there, and it felt after I shared it in this experience, so many of the men from the room who were in there came up to me afterwards and were like saying the most incredible things, like, you're my hero. This happened to me when I was a kid or whatever, and I never had the courage to talk about it. Thank you for talking about it. You're giving me the courage. And many men shared that with me, which I felt like, okay, I feel safer sharing it to an environment of people that had something similar in common. But no one else can know about this. I still was insecure and worried about what people would think about me outside of this context. Like, what about my friends and family? Would they accept me? What about my audience? All these things. After about 6 months, I realized I started sharing with it one by one to friends, family members, and I felt more and more free the more I talked about it. The more I felt like, oh, people accepted me, or I'm accepting myself, whether they accept me or not. And I felt like the final thing I needed to do was talk about it publicly. And I don't recommend people share their shame publicly, but since I had a platform and I was talking about these types of things with other people, I felt it necessary to open up on my podcast about it about 7 years ago, I guess it was. And it's still the most downloaded thing and most, viewed page on my website, me opening up about it.
Sure.
And it was, again, it felt like another death. I feel like I'm going to die.
But it was really another life.
Exactly.
It brought you to life because the basis of all friendship is we choose people who share our vulnerabilities. People don't seem to know that. The basis of all friendship is we pick people who share our vulnerabilities. When I have clients who come in and go, well, I just pretend I'm perfect. I tell everyone I've got a great weekend, I'm so busy, and actually I sit at home with my cat drinking vodka because I don't want to let anyone know that I'm lonely or sad. It's like, but then that's how you make friends. We like people.
Why is that? Why do we connect with people that have like a similar shame or vulnerability or fear?
Because they're real. We like people who are real and authentic. And so people, in my experience anyway, all of my clients who either pretend to be perfect or appear to be perfect are without question the unhappiest, but also the loneliest too.
Really?
I mean, a lot of my clients will say, my first wife was a model and that was like having a racehorse. I mean, the amount of work and effort and money, and now my wife is normal, and it's such a relief. Such a relief to just be with someone warm and normal, relaxed, and funny. Yeah. So I think just people can't relate to someone who isn't real. We look at people and we think, it's like when you go to school and you're a kid and you go, hey, I like Barbie, I like Barbie, I like green pasta, I like green pasta. And then they go, I like you because you're like me and I'm like you. So even as children, we look. And then as we get older, we go, do you like that football team? Is that your favorite band? Is that your favorite show on Netflix? Oh, you're like me. And when people say, oh, I hated that show. Oh, I never eat that. Then we can't relate. So the minute you open up and share your vulnerability, because we all have vulnerabilities, now you're real and people can relate.
Right.
And when you're not real, people can't relate. Check out my next video here. Anyone notice that as that day comes around, they're sick? Because here's how the mind works. You say, oh my God, I volunteered to chair that meeting. I must have been out of my mind. I'd die if I've got to go on stage. I don't want to do that. And your brain's like, leave that with me. Now next Wednesday.